We'll begin today's practice with an abdominal massage. So reach for either a rolled up towel or a neck pillow used for travel. Place it on the floor. Come to your hands and knees. Begin to lie down on your belly, resting your abdomen on top of your blanket or pillow. Begin to rock side to side and keep your elbows bent as you prop yourself up. Untuck your toes to resist the urge of bracing or holding your body. It may be difficult at first, but try and allow your body to completely settle on top of the pillow or towel beneath you. Rock from left to right, maybe even making some circular motions through the hips, exploring any adhesions or trigger points that are within your abdominal muscles. Know that you're not doing any harm here to your body, even if the sensation is quite strong. Try and relax as much as possible with each breath. As you begin to settle, it may feel accessible for you to actually rest your head down towards the floor, maybe either propped up on your fist or your forearm. So just take a moment to explore. If when you do that, the information is too much, come back to your elbows. Otherwise, we're going to focus on breathing deeply here. It might feel a little counterintuitive with that feedback pressing into your belly, but just try and breathe into it. And again, rock from side to side, maybe rock front and back. And at this point, prop yourself up on your elbows once again and maybe move to another area. So you might want to move down a little bit closer towards the pubic bone. Again, we're just exploring and playing detective here, noticing what parts of the body are pretty tense. And alternatively, you can bend your left knee, draw it up to the left side of your mat, and reach your hands and chest over towards the right side of your mat. Again, you can rest your forehead down here. This is going to work a little bit more into your psoas and your hip flexors. And all of these areas connect to the pelvic floor. So the psoas, your hip flexors, the diaphragm, your abdominal muscles, they're all one here. Switch sides, bending your right knee, angling the torso towards the left. And it might even feel good to bend that right knee, draw the right foot up, and kind of swish your leg side to side. And again, once you find a place of comfort, try and relax, try and breathe into it, and know that with each day it will get easier. Take a breath in and exhale. Coming up to your elbows one more time, readjust your pillow if needed, and now allow the pillow to rest up towards the top of your rib cage. And for me, I feel quite a bit of information here, so really take your time. And let's start to visualize our pelvic floor. It resides between the pubic bone and the tailbone, and left to right in between our sits bones. So as we inhale, envision the space between the pubic and tailbone growing longer in distance. And on your next inhale, include the space from your left and right sits bone, and they grow apart as well. So with each inhale, you visualize the space between these 4 points of contact growing longer, lengthening, and relaxing. As you exhale, just let the body follow suit and relax. Those muscles will naturally contract on their own. Slowly begin to prop yourself back up onto your elbows. Come to hands and knees, and we'll place that prop to the side and lie down on the floor. Once you lie back, allow your spine to settle softly onto your floor. Walk your feet out about hips distance and let your knees softly come into touch. Just take a few natural breaths. Do not force the air in or out. And notice how the breath might flow a little bit more freely than usual. Place your palms on your low pelvis, and we're going to envision sending our breath to the space beneath our palms. So as we draw the breath in, we're going to visualize the space between our pubic bone and tailbone growing in length. the muscles receive the breath and relax. And softly exhale. On the next breath in, this time we're going to send the breath to the space between our left and right sits bones. Feel those muscles relax. And exhale. So let's bring all those points of contact together. So as we inhale, the space between the pubic bone, tailbone, and sits bones spread, lengthen, and relax. And as the belly descends, the body can relax with it. Keep this pattern of visualization throughout your practice. Keep imagining that the muscles are receiving the breath and the work of the movement. Even if you only feel it for a split second, this is progress. And let's add a little element here to our breath. As we draw the breath in, keep visualizing the pelvic floor. And then softly exhale. And at the bottom of the exhale, pause. Inhale again. Fill the pelvis with your breath. Expand it to the sides of your waist and your back. Take a full exhale. Feel the belly descend and pause. When you're ready, draw your breath in and repeat that pattern. This will encourage your parasympathetic nervous system. And that's another way of saying our calming center. So this idea of slowing our breath, creating a natural rhythm and cadence, is going to signal the brain to slow down our thoughts, to slow down our heart rate, to slow down our blood pressure, and send a comforting message to our body. So know that you can always return to this breath in times of struggle. You have created a safe space for your practice. Take one more breath in, flutter the eyes open, and we'll begin. From here, we're going to move into pelvic tilts. So I want you to think of curling your tailbone towards your navel. Then we're going to do the opposite. Reach the tailbone towards the floor so you'll feel the low back arch. Go ahead and keep moving through those two variations. So tailbone curls to the navel, and now tailbone presses down into the floor, creating a little bit of a lift and an arch in the low back. You can move through this as quickly or as slowly as you wish, but it's important that we bring some awareness to this range of motion. So as we tuck the tailbone under, this is a posterior tilt. And when we tilt the pelvis forward, it's called an anterior tilt. So let's move through that maybe 3 more times. And it's okay to exaggerate this movement a little bit and then start to make the movement a little bit smaller and a little bit more subtle. And you're going to find you'll get closer to your variation of neutral. I lost count, so I'm going to say that was it. And find a neutral position for your pelvis. So the tailbone is not tucked in towards the navel, but the pelvis isn't tipping forward, and there isn't a huge arch in the low back. So you relax your arms by your sides. You can even place the palms down to get a little more support for balance. Draw your right knee in towards your chest, maintaining that fluid breath into the pelvis. Bring your right knee out towards your armpit, out towards the right side of the mat, down towards the top edge of your mat, and then back into the center. So let's do that 4 more times. Right knee into the chest, right knee opens towards the armpit, and then the right side of the mat, down towards the top or bottom, depending how you refer to it, and repeat 3 more times. So what we're doing here is getting the hip joint to function just like a hip. We don't want the pelvis to rock side to side. So a way to think about that is anchoring the hip points down. We're not letting either side lift. And I believe we got 1 more. In case you haven't noticed, I tend to talk and lose track of count. So let's go 1 more time around. Good. And then we're going to change direction. So instead of bringing the knee into the chest, this time reach it back, out, into the armpit, and then to the center of the chest. So down towards the top, out, draw it back in towards the center. So again, notice that you're not rolling around in the hips or the legs. You're isolating the movement, anchoring down through the low back and through the hips. Good. Bring that right foot down to the floor and we'll move to the other side. Left knee draws into the chest. Make sure you're breathing here. Open out toward the left, down towards the top, and then back in. Good. Repeat that movement. Checking in with yourself, noticing how does your left side feel versus the right. And it wouldn't be surprising if one side had more tension than the other. So again, we just want to notice, does this make me feel better, worse, or the same? But we don't want to categorize this as a good or bad thing. We're just noticing what's available to us. And now we're going to change directions. Good. So this is really key when we're talking about chronic pain, is sort of playing detective. You know, experimenting and practicing different types of movement and learning what's currently accessible and what maybe isn't quite available to you yet. Doesn't mean it never will. Good, continue to breathe, but you might need to move a little bit slower or a little bit smaller circles, and foot comes down to the floor. Good. Let's take a moment to pause, rest the hands on the pelvis, fill the pelvis with your breath, not just on the front side of the body, but on the left and right sides, as well as the low back. What do you feel within your hip joints? And what do you feel within the pelvis? Resist categorizing it or labeling it. We're just taking note. We're just taking inventory. Good work, guys. Reach for the back of your right thigh and let your right knee just settle over the right hip joint. Now, if it's difficult for you to reach your leg, you can get a strap or a tie and reach for that behind your leg. And we'll take a few breaths here. It's going to be tempting to draw your knee to your chest. Please resist that urge. We're going to get there, I promise. But right now, we're just letting the femur or your thigh bone settle into the pelvis. One more breath. On your next inhale, draw that right knee in towards your chest to any degree that is accessible to you. You might reach for the front of the right leg, or you might continue to reach on the back side. Notice the further you draw that knee into your chest, what starts to happen in the tailbone? It starts to tuck under. It's not a bad thing, but when we posteriorly tilt, it creates a contraction on the pelvic floor. So let's remember those pelvic tilts and find your neutral. So I'm actually going to reach and press my tailbone slightly down to the floor to maintain that little bit of a curve in my lumbar spine. Good, and rest your foot down to the floor. Reach for the back of the left thigh. Remember, first we're going to let the femur bone settle into the hip socket. We're not going to force anything. This isn't about creating tension. We want to settle into the movement. So even as you first do it, you might experience sensation. So again, ask yourself, is this sensation making me feel better, worse, or the same? Good. And then we're going to draw the left knee in towards your chest. Again, either reaching for the back of the thigh or the front of the leg. Be aware of the position of your pelvis. We want to maintain somewhat of a neutral position. So think of that tailbone slightly reaching down towards the floor. See if the muscles of the face can stay relaxed. Maybe swallow gently to let the tongue descend down the throat. Good, and then we're going to release. Take a moment again to take inventory. So maybe a breath, maybe two, and just notice what's happening in the body. Big breath in. And full exhale out. Good. I want you to reach for either your yoga strap or your belt, whatever you have handy. You're going to take that belt in the left and right hand. Draw your right knee into your chest. Place the belt on the ball of your foot. That's really important. We don't want to go to the arch or the heel or on the toes. Sometimes I see that. So the strap goes right to the ball of your foot. Think of flexing your toes towards your shin. Straighten your leg to any degree that feels accessible to you. So if the knee's bent, that's fine. It's not about straightening the leg. It's more about allowing, once again, the leg to anchor directly over that hip joint. If you can, press your heel either forward in space or up towards the ceiling. Toes continue to flex towards the shin. One thing we want to remember with our pelvic floor is everything kind of from the navel down to mid-thigh is part of our pelvic floor. So that includes our abdomen, our low back and our sacrum, our hips, our glutes, hamstrings, quads, inner thighs. So that's why we're paying attention to these areas here. One more breath, inhale and exhale. Now I want you to think of turning your toes out towards the right as you take your strap in your right hand. Your heel angles in slightly towards the center. So now we have this leg externally rotating. Inhale, and as you exhale, allow your right leg to open to the side without letting the pelvis tilt or rock towards the right. So what you might find here is you don't go as far as you think you normally would. So I'll give you an example in my body. If I opened here, my left hip and back of the pelvis is actually off of the floor. So it serves me more benefit to stay upright a little bit. Take one more breath in. And as you exhale, come back to the center. And then we're going to take the strap in our left hand. Toes now angle in towards the center. Heel comes out to the right. We're internally rotating that thigh. Draw the right leg across the body, again, without lifting or losing connection in the right side. So this movement is going to be pretty small. And I'll show you again from this side. You might see a little better. So I could go further, but you might see this space that gets created from the back side of my body. So I want to come up until I can connect and anchor. And you might feel sensation on the outer leg and hip, maybe even into the glutes. Good, and then we'll come back up. Softly bend the knee. Bring your foot back down. You can keep your knees bent. If you need to lengthen your leg out long, be my guest. You want to just take a moment here to notice what is happening in the body. There's lots of different sensations that could be created here. In my body, I feel a little bit softer and more open in the right side as I do compared to the left. You might feel something entirely different, and that's fine. Draw that right knee back up if it was straight. We're going to go to the other side. Okay, so strap goes to the ball of the left foot. Remember, that's important. We want to think of the toes flexing in towards the knee. We're going to straighten that leg to any degree. So even if your knee stays here, it's fine. We just want to keep that thigh somewhat over the hip joint here. And maybe as you breathe, you might be able to press through the quad, through the heel, and straighten a little more. But again, that's not needed. Breathing in and out. And checking in once again, is this making me feel better, worse, or the same? We're going to take our strap in the left hand. You might want to walk it up a little bit higher. Left toes come out to the left edge of your mat as the left heel angles in. Same thing, we're going to open the left leg to the side. Keep anchoring through the right. And what you may notice is to maintain your balance and equal leverage here in the pelvis, the abdominal muscles might turn on, and that's okay. Just be aware if it's causing any additional tension in your pelvic floor. So revisit those 4 points of contact or that diamond-like shape. Can we allow that area to relax on the inhale and slightly contract as we exhale? Bring that foot back in, and we'll just change the position. Right hand comes to the strap. Right toes angle in, left toes angle in, left heel angles out. And this might feel really wonky in your body, and that's okay. Cross it over towards the right without losing that balance or leverage within the torso, the hips, the sacrum, and your pelvis. Internal and external rotation is really important for healthy joints. And as I mentioned, the hips play a huge role in the health of our pelvis. And let's come back to center. remove that strap. Give yourself a moment to settle and reacclimate to lying on the floor. So knee can remain bent or left leg can come out long. For me, it feels good just to let it come out. Again, take inventory. So what parts of the body tensed? In my body, I do feel a little bit of holding tension on the left side. So right now I'm going to focus on letting the pelvic floor come back to a relaxed state. And I'm giving you guys a moment or two of silence just to tap into your intuition, but I promise you, your video has not frozen, it's not broken. Good, and then bend the left knee, left foot to the floor if you straightened it. We can go ahead and move that strap to the side. Open the feet a little bit wider than hips distance. Arms can rest by your sides. Rock your knees over to the right. This time it's okay for the pelvis and hip to come off the floor. So it's going to rotate with you. Now knees go to the left, and again your hips and your pelvis will rotate to the left. Let's just do that several more times, maybe for about a minute here. So rocking side to side as slowly as you wish. You can play around with the pace or the pattern. Maybe you hold at the top and then come back down. And when I do this movement, I find I usually reach a place where it feels kind of good to just lay still, hold here for a breath or two, and then come back up and do the same thing on the other side. But all the while keeping the rest of your body nice and relaxed, particularly the pelvic floor. Notice its tendency to hold tension and how it travels through the rest of the body. Then we're going to draw the knees back up to the center. If it would feel good to you to draw the knees into the chest, opening them to about hips distance. Reach that tailbone towards the floor. And then draw the knees back into the center. Draw your right knee in towards your chest. Externally rotate the right thigh. So that means right knee out towards the right edge of your mat. Cross your right ankle over your left knee. And a lot of people will feel tension in the knee. So I want you to be mindful of that. If you're feeling it, bring your knee closer in towards the chest. That should take a little bit of torque out of the knee joint. If opening the knee out to the side feels good, stay there. Notice if you're rolling to the pinky edge of the left foot, if the knee is sickling out to the side, we want to stay anchored through the pelvis and the hip. So think of keeping a level waistband. And we'll take about 5 breaths here. I'm going to begin to get a little more quiet and let you settle into your body. Once again, I want you to remember your deep pelvic breathing. Even start to envision the breath lengthening through the inner thigh, up through the knee. And if the mind wanders, which it will, come back to your breath. Maybe count your inhale for 2, 3, 4. Give yourself a pause. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. So again, we're not going to accomplish all of our issues in one single yoga practice, but what we are doing is reestablishing our relationship to our body. We're re-inhabiting it and letting it feel like home rather than an enemy. Uncross your leg. Maybe you want to swish those knees side to side once again. Same thing, left knee in towards the chest, externally rotate, cross left ankle over the right knee. Observe any tension that kind of spikes in the body that isn't necessary, that isn't invited to the party, so to speak. So we don't want tension in the knees. We don't want tension in the upper body or the back or the throat or the muscles within the face. Take about 4 or 5 breaths. No forcing, just being. And if it helps, envision your breath creating softness into the muscles, allowing them to expand and almost melt. As you take your last breath in, exhale, uncross the ankle, lower your left foot to the floor, Once again, I invite you to make any movement that feels good. I like to sway my knees side to side. You might want to draw the knees into your chest. Maybe you want to do a little of both. Bring your knees into your chest and kind of roll around. The idea here again is just to explore and really become the CEO of your own body. Bring your feet back to the floor. We're going to reach for our yoga blocks or books. With one block in each hand, we're going to angle the tops or the top inner corners of the blocks in towards each other so it makes a V shape. We're going to place this beneath our glutes and our hips. Take one block in each hand, posteriorly tilt your tailbone, press into your feet, lift your hips up high enough so you can place your blocks beneath your bottom and your hips. The idea here is that nothing is touching your sacrum or your low back. This does take a little adjusting. It makes sense to take the time to do this because once you find that position that feels good, you'll be able to completely surrender to the support beneath you, which is what we're looking for. Hands rest on the hips or the pelvis. We're going to think of creating space from the pubic bone all the way back to the tailbone as we inhale. On the next inhale, you maintain that length from front to back, but also invite the left and right side of your pelvic floor in between your sits bones to relax. You can additionally straighten your right leg, reach your right heel towards the floor. That's going to increase the stretch along the front line of the right leg, particularly the quad and the hip flexor. If it creates too deep of a curve in the low back, you can reach for your left thigh. Now, for some of you, this is going to be too much. So stay with that initial variation, okay? Again, you're exploring, you're playing detective here, and you're becoming an advocate for yourself. If you did extend the right leg, you're going to lower the left foot, bring the right leg back in, and switch sides. If both knees are bent, both feet are on the floor, you're going to stay there for a few more breaths. Draw that right knee into the chest to support the low back. Then maybe draw the left heel in a little bit. Just play around with what feels appropriate in your body. Good, and then lower the right foot down if that was lifted. Bend your left knee, left foot to the floor. Want to create a posterior tilt just to support the back as we lift up off the blocks. We're going to move them to the side, softly lower down. Now, even if that variation felt good to you, there was a lot of feedback from the blocks. So maybe you just want to rock again, side to side. I think you're noticing a pattern here. I want you guys to move in a way that feels supportive to you, that feels natural and intuitive. Good. And then we're going to softly roll to our right side. I want you to press into your hands, and we're going to set up for our last pose. As you can see, I've set up my chair at the edge of my mat, so I'm going to give you a few minutes to get set up as I talk to you. You're going to place a blanket on top just for a little extra comfort because we are going to be resting here for a few minutes. I've also placed my pillow right in front of the chair to support my hips and sacrum, and I have my yoga strap. You might also want to place a pillow underneath your head and neck for additional comfort. And sometimes people get a little chilly as they lay here. So feel free to reach for your socks, a sweatshirt, or maybe another blanket to place on top. We're going to place our left hip and bottom right next to our chair. Bring your legs a little bit closer to the chair as you lie on back. So you're going to bend your elbows, lower to your back, lift your left leg, and then your right to rest on top of the chair. My legs are pretty short. If some of you are tall, you might feel like your feet are jamming into your chair. So thread your feet through the back edge for a little more comfort. Begin to lie on back. Once you get here, it makes sense to take a few minutes to adjust anything that doesn't feel appropriate. My support beneath the bottom doesn't feel like it's at the right spot. I'm going to dig my heels Into the chair, lift my hips, and move my pillow so it rests a little bit more in the sacrum and the low back. Place your strap on your belly, and we're going to use it to keep our femurs aligned with the pelvis. So typically when we rest, our legs will naturally kind of roll out to the side. We want to create a neutral position here to alleviate pressure on the pelvis, on the sacrum, and the low back. Take your strap, loop your feet through, and place it about mid-thigh. So you don't want your strap or your belt all the way up at your knees, nor do you want them at your hips. And tighten your strap until there's enough tension that your legs stay in line with the hips. So that means the knees and thighs aren't opening out to the side. And you should have a little give. You don't want to cut off your circulation. But again, enough tension where your legs comfortably relax in place and you don't have to do any work. Another thing you want to remember is keep your hips and your bottom as close to the back of the chair as it's comfortable. So I'm again going to press into my heels and move my bottom just a smidgen closer. So again, the thighs are directly over the hips. One little tip I can offer is let yourself fidget at first. Let yourself find a comfortable position, because once you find that sweet spot, it's going to feel good. And there's no need to really focus on anything particular here. There's no work to be done with the breath. We're just letting it happen naturally and keeping, once you've made all the necessary adjustments and you're able to settle comfortably with the chair and the pillow beneath you, softly close your eyes. Rest your hands either on your pelvis or your low belly. If it feels more appropriate, you can open the arms out to the side with the palms facing up. As we rest in this position to close out our practice, give yourself permission to be completely supported. Your only task is to breathe in and out, slowing down the rhythm. Sometimes when we experience chronic pain, it's really difficult to practice stillness and to listen to your body. It can increase feelings of anxiety or restlessness. So know that you're not alone if that is happening for you. I'm going to offer a practice known as a body scan as a way to inhabit our body and get out of our minds. So let's start with drawing the breath in, either through the nose or the mouth. And let's give a gentle exhale. Let it be audible. This time on our inhale, can the breath reach our toes, our arches, and the heels? And as we exhale, can the ankles become heavy as they rest on the chair? As you breathe in, envision your breath walking up your shins, reaching the knees, creating softness. As you exhale, maintain that sensation as you inhale into the thighs. Feel the warmth of your breath. Encourage the muscles to relax and settle as you exhale. With your next breath, let your hips become heavy. Feel them ground into the pillow or blanket beneath you. Continue to maintain steady grounding sensation in the legs all the way through the hips. And on your next inhale, bring a little awareness to the pelvic floor. Just notice breath by breath if you can let that part of your body take a break and let go of its holding pattern. Even if it happens for a split second. Breathe in Now filling the abdomen and rib cage with your breath all the way around to the back side of your body. On your next breath in, fill your chest, let it rise. And as you exhale, allow it to sink. Allow the shoulder blades to melt and release. Breathing into the shoulders and your neck. And exhale. Gently swallow. Allow your tongue to descend down the throat. Notice if your shoulders are instinctively holding and bracing. As you exhale, can you give them permission to completely let go? Allow them to be free of the burden that they carry around every day. Soften your jaw. Soften the muscles around the mouth, nose, inner and outer corners of the eyes, and the temples. Relax the muscles in between the brows. Let the eyes sink back to the skull. Allow the back body to make an imprint on your blanket as you continue to melt and expand and relax, breath by breath. We'll take just a few more moments here in silence, returning to your breath whenever the mind begins to wander. You can continue to stay in this position as long as you wish. For the purpose of this video, I am going to show you how to exit this setup. So you'll just take a few deep breaths to bring your awareness back to your surrounding in the room. Softly start to bend your knees and maybe draw your heels a little bit closer towards the edge of the seat. And we'll begin by fluttering the eyes open and loosening the strap around the legs. Once again, remove it, place it to the side. Don't knock your chair. And I like to start by just drawing one knee into the chest, then the other. And take a moment to just sort of relish the benefits of that pose and the practice itself. When you're ready, you'll softly roll to your side. Allow your arm to create sort of a pillow here for the side of your head. Depending on your pain level, you could stay here to close your practice, or you can press once again into your hands and come to your seat. Your legs can be crossed, they can be long. And I encourage you just to take a few minutes of silence to one last time take inventory. How do you feel on a physical level compared to the beginning of your practice? Do you feel better? worse, or the same? How do you feel emotionally? What are the quality of your thoughts? Have they slowed or become more compassionate towards yourself? You can bring your hands together to touch at the center of your chest, or you may wish to wrap your arms around you, giving yourself a little hug. And I want you to acknowledge yourself for your practice, for the time you've taken to heal and to learn about your body. Namaste.